All right, let's get into this. We're going to unpack the story of Gamma, a company that was staring into the abyss, facing what they called existential angst. But by tackling one of the most relatable problems out there, that dreaded blank page, they caught a lifeline from AI and completely turned things around, rocketing to a $50 million success.
I mean, this quote from Gamma's founder, John Moronha, it just hits home, right? It's that feeling of total paralysis. You've got this great idea in your head, but that empty canvas is just staring back at you, almost mocking you. That one single universal problem, well, that's the key to this whole story.
So before Gamma became this AI darling, its story was, well, it was a world away from the success it has today. They started out with a really bold vision, but they ran headfirst into a wall that nearly ended the whole company.
So let's set the scene. It's 2020, right in the middle of the pandemic. Gamma gets founded with this huge idea to totally reinvent presentations. But for 2 years, they just struggled. They built this cool future of work tool, and sure, it had some fans, but it just wasn't catching fire. By the end of 2022, cash was running low. The economy was getting shaky, and things looked seriously bleak.
So what did that struggle actually look like? Well, this number says it all. This was their critical cold start problem. Get this, for every 100 people who signed up for their product, a whopping 95 of them would just leave, almost immediately.
And let's be super clear here. The problem wasn't the product itself. The tool was actually really innovative. The issue is that the very first thing a new user saw was that same old intimidating blank page. They couldn't experience the magic of the tool because they never even got started.
And just when things were getting really desperate, a massive tech revolution basically handed them the solution they needed. But, and this is the interesting part, it came from a direction they never saw coming.
Now, you'd probably assume that when they turned to AI, they jumped right on text generation, like GPT-3. But nope, that's not what happened. In fact, they'd actually tried GPT-3 way back in 2020 and just wrote it off as not being good enough. The real spark came from somewhere totally different. It was that explosion of AI image generators, things like Stable Diffusion and DALL-E, that really caught their eye. The founder, John Noronha, saw the viral magic in people just creating these wild, incredible images, and he had this insight. This is the next clip art. It was actually the visual side of AI that first made them realize how this could fundamentally change presentations.
So all that excitement around the image models pushed them to give text AI another look. And when they retested GPT-3, they found it was a completely different animal. You see, OpenAI had been quietly working on something called instruction tuning, which is basically just a fancy way of saying they trained the AI to get way better at following human-like prompts. This made the models dramatically more useful, and all of a sudden, the AI was good enough to solve the problem, not just their business problem, but the user's blank page problem. And this right here, this was the fundamental shift. AI completely transformed the user's job. Instead of the terrifying task of creating something from absolute nothing, their new job was way easier. Just edit a fully formed first draft. That simple change, it unlocked everything for them.
Okay, so they had their big aha moment. But having a great idea is one thing. Actually executing on it is a whole different ballgame. Let's look at the specific strategies that let Gamma turn this powerful insight into a powerhouse product.
This is how users describe Gamma, and it's a perfect analogy. It takes the block-based, writing-first interface of something like Notion, where you really just start typing, and combines it with the visual flair and design power of Canva. It's a really unique mix that defines their whole approach.
Their whole company culture was different too. At one point, a third of their team were designers, which for an early-stage startup is pretty unusual. They also deliberately kept the team small, staying lean and paranoid so they could move fast and adapt to the crazy, fast-changing world of AI. And unlike competitors who were just burning cash on expensive AI models, they focused on being cost-efficient and getting to cash flow positive from the get-go.
Okay, this is where it gets really smart and tactical. In a world where there are new AI models dropping, like every week from Google, OpenAI, Anthropic, how in the world do you decide which one to actually use? Well, they don't just guess.
They built this incredibly sophisticated A/B testing system, which isn't a huge surprise since the founder came from Optimizely. So every new model that comes out gets put through this flywheel. They do the automated tests, sure, but then they measure what really matters, real user behavior. Do people actually like the output? How much do they have to edit it? And the most important question of all, does using this model actually convince them to become a paying customer?
And all of that testing leads to this, a multi-model strategy. They don't just have one favorite, they've got what they call their favorite children. They use Claude when they need creativity and, taste. They use Gemini for its incredible cost efficiency.
That's their daily workhorse. And they use GPT models for really specific tasks like generating text-heavy infographics. It's all about picking the absolute best tool for every single job.
So, with this winning formula in hand, Gamma turned its sights on a market that is dominated by some of the biggest names in tech, and their vision now goes way, way beyond just making presentations.
And look, this chart just shows you the sheer scale of the mountain they're climbing. Gamma is super proud of its millions of users, but then you look at PowerPoint and Google Slides, and they have a combined user base of over 1 billion. This is exactly why Gamma sees itself as this scrappy little insurgent taking on these massive incumbents.
So their strategy isn't to try and beat PowerPoint at its own game. They know that eventually, PowerPoint will become a great AI PowerPoint builder. So instead, they want to be a great Gamma builder. The goal is to lean into what makes their medium unique and different rather than just trying to copy features.
And this is where their ambition really starts to show. People started using Gamma for things the founders never even intended, like creating beautiful PDF proposals or brochures or even simple websites for their small businesses. So now they're leaning into that, and they're even launching an API to help automate all kinds of visual content.
And it all ladders up to this new, much grander vision. They're not just an AI presentation tool anymore. No, they want to be the go-to visual storytelling platform for any kind of high-stakes communication. Anytime looking good really, really matters.
You know, when you zoom out, Gamma's story is really a preview of a future where AI isn't just a tool we use, but a genuine partner. And as these tools get more and more capable of taking on complex tasks all by themselves, it forces us to ask a really fundamental question. What does it truly mean to be the author of our own work?